Hello everyone, today we're going to be continuing the Espresso with Kero series. Hopefully there isn't too much echo in my office. I've never recorded here before, but we'll see. We'll see how this audio quality is. For those who are new to the series, Espresso with Kero is the TLDR version of Tea with Kero. So today we're going to be covering mainly the episode with Eckogen. So we talked about pay to progress, Unreal Engine 4, net coding, what classes we recommend for new players. We also talked about guild management, raid management, how to avoid burnout, how to find a guild, and how to overcome some social anxiety issues. Sorry if you guys see me looking over here at the time, because I do have my laptop over here with all the notes that I have, because it was a very long podcast. It was a 3-hour podcast, which I cut down to about 2 hours. So let's jump right into it. So, first of all, we talked about pay to progress. So Blade & Soul is a Korean MMO. So a Korean MMO is essentially a very grindy game to begin with. And then now they've added in incentives for people to use cash in order to accelerate their progress. And so there's the age-old debate on whether Blade & Soul is pay to win or pay to progress. And what Eckogen and myself, we both agree that it is pay to progress and not pay to win. While the Chinese server, on the other hand, is pay to win, because essentially you can go into the F10 shop and buy items that are greater as a Grand Celestial weapon, which is pretty insane. So there's that. So, we've got our RNG boxes, we've got our trove, we've got all these items which allow us to progress much quicker than the average free-to-play player. So, for example, if you're a new player coming into Blade & Soul and let's say you're fully free to play, it would take you about 1 to 2 months just to gear up, just to get to maybe your Raven tier. While if you're a cash user, you would be able to get to your Raven tier within 2 weeks. Mainly because you're able to buy certain items, you're able to buy gold, you're able to accelerate your growth. However, the reason why we say it's pay to progress and not pay to win is because everyone's going to hit the same bottleneck. Everyone's going to get to their Aransu weapon and maybe get to their Aransu 9, and most people are going to get stuck there because the only way to progress past Aransu 9 into the Grand Celestial, there's a very, very expensive premium that you have to pay because you need to buy a carry run. Since there aren't many guilds around at the moment that can do Twilight Temple, there is a premium on it, and thus a lot of whales or a lot of cash users aren't willing to pay that premium, and thus they usually just stop at Aransu. And that's why we say that it is pay to progress and not pay to win. If you could simply just buy the item directly off the cash shop that would let you go to Grand Celestial, then it would be borderline pay to win. In the podcast, we also brought up a counter argument. If we rewind about 6 months ago, your Hive Queen breakthrough material was not bound on account, nor was it tradable. It was bound on character. So a lot of people troved in order to get that material that they needed to get to their Aransu weapon. So, there's two sides of the argument. People are like, but Kero, you just said that it's not pay to win because everyone has an equal chance to get to certain items. But if we look at the facts, there has been troves where they're giving out items which allow players to have the chance or the opportunity to use cash in order to get certain materials which are normally not obtainable if you can't clear certain content. So there's two sides to the argument, but personally, I feel like it's still pay to progress. It hasn't gone to pay to win yet. It's dangerously close, but it's not there yet. If they suddenly add a new thing, for example, if they let Awakening patch, let's say that they decided that, in December we'll let people try the Awakening patch. However, we'll only let people who have premium test out the Awakening patch, while everyone else doesn't have the Awakening patch. Then it creates an unfair advantage to people who are paying or people who are premium, because it allows them to test out things that the free-to-play players have no way to try, no way to test. And by creating that, then it would be pay to win. While if it's just an item that the free-to-play players still have a means in order to obtain that item, then I believe it is still pay to progress. So that's my fine line where I cut it. As long as the people who are free to play are still able to get all the items that the pay to win players are able to get, then I feel like it's okay. As long as they don't nerf the upgrade rates or the RNG rates to abysmal levels. For example, on the Chinese server, my Tiger bracelet is still stage 7 because I failed the upgrade from stage 7 to stage 8 like 13 times. So, like, if they're doing that, then it feels really unfair because they sell an item in the cash shop, which gives you a 100% success rate to break through your bracelet. Like, that to me feels very unfair. So that's why I switched over to the NA server, because it's more, to me, I feel like it's more fair. So that covers pay to progress. So next up, we're going to talk about Unreal Engine 4. So Unreal Engine 4 is pretty much the future of Blade and Soul, especially for the PC version. This will determine whether Blade and Soul will survive or will die. I might sound a little bit dramatic there, but personally, honestly, that's what I feel, especially for the West release. NC West, I think that they're banking a lot on Unreal Engine 4 because a lot of players have left Blade and Soul mainly because of optimization issues, ping issues, and it's just not, it's a great game, but the way that the game is coded is just not so good. You know, it's not well optimized at all. People with 1070s, 1080s are having like 50, 60 FPS as tops. And you know, with a 1080, you should be able to play games in 4K, at 30 FPS 4K easily. But in 1080p, you know, and you're still only getting 60 FPS with a 1080, that's a little bit insane. Like, their optimization really needs some work. And that's why a lot of people are hoping that Unreal Engine 4 is going to fix a lot of those issues. So NCSoft is playing it very safe. They're testing it on the mobile platforms first. And I'm hoping throughout their tests on the mobile platforms, they're able to sort out some ping issues, some optimization issues, and make the game perfect, or as good as it can be before porting it over to the PC release. As for the reasoning on why NCSoft is making so many mobile games for Blade and Soul, I'm sure that you've seen a bazillion videos around already. Eckogen's made a video as well, just explaining why a lot of developers are shifting towards mobile games. And it's mainly because the money is there. And because I live in China, I understand this very well. Because a lot of people, especially like my staff, you know, a lot of them, they don't have very high expendable income, but they do need a phone. Nowadays, everything is about networking. We talk to people with our phone, we send short messages, we use WeChat, we use WhatsApp, and like a lot of social media is based off our phone. So a lot of people are willing to spend the money, a couple $100 or $1,000 on a nice phone. And since they have this nice phone already, there's nothing stopping them from trying a game, especially if a game is free. And thus, that's how a lot of companies hook people, like especially from Tencent. You know, Tencent is one of the biggest mobile game platforms in China. And that's how they hook a lot of people. They say, look, here's a free game. And they use the free-to-play model to hook people into microtransactions. And a lot of people are very willing to drop, a couple dollars on a game. But since they have such a wide reach and there's so many players playing the game, it's pretty scary, the amount of money they make. And thus, that's why developers are going to the mobile platforms. Next up is netcode. So netcode is a very tricky subject because it affects all of us, especially players like myself who play from China. We have very high ping when connecting to the US servers. And so there's a couple suggestions on what they could do with netcode in order to fix the ping. It would be put extra nodes. So what a node is essentially it's like a server that redirects all of the traffic directly to the main server. They could have multiple nodes. They could have a node in California. They could have a node in New York. And so people from the West Coast or the East Coast, they directly connect to this node. And this node's connection with the server, with the main server, it has a very optimized connection. Maybe they have a fiber optic cable that connects them directly instead of redirecting the information. Thus, the node could handle all of the traffic that from the West Coast or from the East Coast, depending on what server you are, and then redirect all that traffic with an optimal connection directly to the main server. And by doing that, that allows players in both East Coast and West Coast to have equal ping or optimized ping, as well as the people who are in Central America, who are, in Dallas or in Texas or whatever, they will also have an optimized connection. That way it evens out the ping across the board, and it also allows players like myself, which are in Asia, through exitlag or through other programs which allow us to reroute our connections to directly connect to that node in order to optimize our connection as well. Because the reason why ping spikes, or the reason why ping is high, is because our ISP, or our internet service provider, does not give us the most optimal connection. So for example, when I'm in China and I'm connecting to, let's say, the League of Legends American servers, it has to redirect to Hong Kong, from Hong Kong all the way to LA or all the way to Chicago. Instead of going directly from China to LA or China to Chicago, I'm going from China to Hong Kong, and then Hong Kong to LA or Hong Kong to Chicago. So, by having that redirect, sometimes let's say that there's a hiccup. Let's say that the connection from China to Hong Kong has some interference and there's a few packets that are dropped there. Then it causes a ping spike for me. Or even worse is from Hong Kong to LA or Hong Kong to Chicago. If there's a hiccup there, then there's also a ping spike. So the less nodes that I connect to, the better the connection I can get. So recommended classes for new players. So I haven't personally made a video yet regarding on what I recommend, but more or less a lot of players have the same consensus. It's, for example, if you're playing a range class, the summoner and the gunner are very easy to pick up, are very easy to learn. As for melee classes, a lot of people are recommending Warden. Warden is very strong right now. However, there are nerfs coming up in the next couple months, so do be prepared for that, Warden players. And Wardens are very easy to learn because of their Blade Ward. So their Blade Ward makes them immune to all CCs. So as long as they're hitting that target that is CCing them, which is usually the boss. So, for example, in Scion's Keep, the Iron Conqueror is a very annoying boss to tank because he has certain attack rotations. You need to learn, you need to block, you need to dodge certain attacks. However, when you have a Warden, you literally just press V, you activate your Blade Ward, and you just start wailing on the boss, and that's it. Because you have CC immunity, so the boss can't CC you, and it makes the fight a lot easier as a tank. So Warden definitely is a very good class to pick up because of its ease of access. It's very easy to play, very easy to learn, and it's mainly just Warden. As for melee, a second class that I could recommend would probably be Blade Master or KFM, because this game is lacking in tanks. However, keep in mind that if you do play a tank, it will take time, it will take effort to learn boss attack rotations in order to tank effectively. The next thing that we covered was how to manage a guild. So guild is a very difficult thing to manage. The main reason why it's difficult is because the larger you get, the more complex things are. So when you first start off your guild, it's just your group of friends, it's you and your inner circle. So it's relatively easy. Everyone has the same mindset. Everyone knows each other. Everyone understands each other, and things are very easy to resolve. But as you get bigger, for example, Strawberry Pancakes right now, we're at 58 members. Now it becomes more tricky because it's very natural for a guild to have its own cliques, own groups. So for example, with Strawberry Pancakes, we have two very distinct groups. We have players that are in first raid, players that are in second raid. So the first raid members and the second raid members, they do not mingle with each other. There are a few members that do, but the majority do not. And it's not because they don't like each other. It's just the mindset is different. So a lot of people join guilds because they either they want to find friends or people that are like-minded to play the game with people that they like. That's one category. The second category is because they want to join that guild's raid, because they want to do raids and they want to progress through the game and they want to get better gear, better items. And, a lot of players pick the second route because a lot of players associate fun in Blade and Soul with progression. When I'm super strong and I can one-shot minions and I can kill bosses in 10 seconds, to me, that is fun. because I feel powerful, I feel strong, I feel like this is great. But there's a small minority of players that don't care about gear and care about who they play with. And that was the first type of person that I said that are looking for guilds for this social aspect. And so when you start a guild, you really need to understand that when people apply to your guild, you need to identify why they're applying to your guild. Are they joining your guild for the social aspect, or are they joining the guild for the sake of progression? And for example, I closed off all applications to Strawberry Pancakes because I don't have any space in raids. I don't have any space to help these people who apply to my guild because for the sake of progression, because there's no space in my raid. I can't accommodate to them. So I'd rather close all applications and just focus my efforts on maintaining the guild, making sure that everyone in the guild is happy. And so managing a guild is a very tricky thing. A lot of it depends on what you want to do. Essentially, as a guild leader, you are the embodiment of the guild. For example, Strawberry Pancakes. Strawberry Pancakes would not be Strawberry Pancakes without me. So the TLDR for managing a guild is really, before you start a guild, know what you signed up for. By being a guild leader, you essentially are telling people that I am going to deal with all the crap and I'm going to make sure that this guild is healthy and is in good condition. However, keep in mind that it's not always going to be sunshine and flowers, that dealing with a lot of issues is quite time consuming and quite exhausting. For example, there's a lot of drama, guild drama that happens. So you need to put safeguards in order to prevent guild drama from happening, or you need to solve the problem at its source. And, let's say that you immediately sense, oh, something's wrong here, maybe some drama's happening. You immediately need to go there and troubleshoot it and spend a lot of time and effort to get rid of it. So being a guild leader is not easy. It's quite a time-consuming task. However, it is rewarding. The way it's rewarding is you get a lot of recognition. So you can see, like a lot of my guild members, whenever they go into F8 and stuff, people are like, oh wow, you're in Keropi's guild. And that type of recognition is only achievable by running a guild or running a raid, and that's how you become well known on the server, by having a good guild, by having a good raid. So it really depends on what you're looking for. Not everyone is built out to be a guild leader. Guild leader it requires a very specific person, a very specific type of personality to be a guild leader. So for me, it's quite easy because I run a business on a daily basis anyway. That's pretty much my advice for guild leaders. As for raid leaders, how to run a raid. Raid is a totally different beast compared to from a guild. The main reason is because guild is more about people management. Raid is people management and progression on top of that. Because when people join a raid or when you start hosting a raid, you really need to pick two paths. There's one path is you're here to have fun. Second path is you're here for progression. So you need to identify what you're going for and which one is priority 1 and which one is priority 2. It's very important that you identify that because depending on what you prioritize will affect the people that you invite into your raid. Like I see a lot of raid leaders, they just kind of wing it and they just invite whoever. But that will always cause more harm than good in the long run. You really need to select players. So certain players, they don't mesh well together. Maybe they have an ego issue. Maybe they just don't like that person. Maybe they don't have, there's a lot of reasons why people don't get along with each other. And in a raid, especially in progression raid, it's usually a high pressure situations because you're progressing, you're learning, and people get frustrated easily because they're stressed. So as a raid leader, you really need to troubleshoot. You need to make sure that everyone is calm, everyone's in good condition, and that no one is stressing out during the raid. And it's very difficult to do that, especially since you're going through the same progression yourself, and you may be stressed out, you may be tilted, but you're the raid leader. So when you're doing your shot calling, where you're doing the management, the role management, telling people what mechs they're doing, etc. It's very stressful because you may be tilted, but you're not allowed to sound tilted. Because if you sound tilted, the entire raid will tilt because you are the raid leader. So it takes a lot of self-control in order to be a raid leader. And another thing is it's also time consuming, but in a different way. It's time consuming because you need to know all the mechs. Because as the raid leader, you essentially are going to be teaching everyone what they're doing. If you're not the one teaching it, then you have to have someone that can teach it. A lot of people join a raid and they're going to go in blind. Even if you give them the material and tell them to read it and revise over it, blah, 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 the chances are very high that they're not going to read it. And this is just a normal thing. It's just something that you need to adapt to, or you need to place certain safeguards depending on what type of raid you're hosting. So in my raid, I prioritize fun over progression. If I know that people are not having fun, people are tilted, people are getting mad, I will call off the raid and just say, we're done for tonight, we'll see each other next week, take a chill pill, relax. The main reason I do that is because I prioritize fun over progression. I don't care if we don't progress for a week or two, as long as people are having fun. But there's a lot of people out there that prioritize progression over fun. They say, listen, we're dedicating this much time a day or this much time a week to progress through this raid. Let's not waste this time. Let's be efficient about it and make the best out of it. And thus they prioritize progression. So even if people are upset, people are tilted, they're going to say, we're going to keep pushing. Or we're going to keep going until the time is up because, we don't want to waste our time. And it really depends on what type of management or what type of raid that you are using, that you are hosting. So that covers raid management or how to manage a raid. So next up is how to avoid burnout. Burnout is a double-edged sword because in order to progress faster, you need to put more time into the game. However, the more you play the game, the more risk there is in burning out. So it's a double-edged sword. It's like, do I want to progress fast? Or do I want to pace myself and prevent burnout? Or how do I avoid burnout? The way that Eckogen avoids burnout was he plays multiple games. And I've been taking his advice and I've been doing the same. And it really does work. At least it works for me. It was, instead of spending 3 to 4 hours of my free time every day just playing Blade and Soul, I pace myself. I break it up. So I go on Blade and Soul. At the bare minimum, I will do Purple Train on one character, which is usually my Summoner. So on my Summoner, I'll do my entire Purple Train from Shadowmoor all the way down to Starstone Mines. So that's one set, and then I usually make about 110 gold, I think. And then I would just stop there. If I still want to play, then I'll run on my second character, on my Gunner, with my Premade again. But if I don't want to play, it's fine. I just tell my Premade, look, I'm done. I'm going to go play League of Legends. I'm going to play Black Ops 4. I'm going to play MapleStory 2. I have different games depending on what I feel like playing. Obviously, there are days where you don't feel like playing anything. And if you don't feel like playing anything, always have a backup plan. My backup plan has always been anime. I have not seen the latest season of Sword Art Online. I have not seen a lot of animes that are out from previous seasons. And so I have a very big backlog of animes to watch when I really don't feel like doing anything and I'm just bored. So then I would just watch anime, or I would watch movies, or I would listen to documentaries or podcasts. And there's a whole bunch of things that I could do. Those are my safeguards. Because I'm just back from work and, I'm tired. So usually I want to play video games as that is my source of stress relief. But some days I just don't feel like playing or I don't feel like socializing. And that's when I go to my backup plan, which is, anime, movies, listening to podcasts, listening to documentaries. And while I'm doing that, I would be doing something else on the side. Maybe I would be thinking about video ideas for YouTube. Or maybe I would think about, maybe I'll start writing a script of something and stuff like that, Just keep yourself busy. And that's how I avoid burnout. And it's really just a mindset and pacing yourself. The worst thing that you can do is just, even though you're burned out of a game and you keep playing it, that's the worst thing you can do because you're not having fun. If you're not having fun, why are you wasting your free time on the game, right? If you're burned out, just be like, listen, I'm just going to take a break. Like, there's plenty of people in my first raid, that are burned out of the game. But all they do is they just don't play the game normally, and they only come on for raids. And to them, that is like the right amount of Blade and Soul that they can handle every week. And I don't see a problem with that. Like, sure, some people might fall behind in gear, but from my raid leading personality and my guild philosophy is I'm not going to kick them. I'm not going to kick them because their gear is not up to par. Instead, I use reverse psychology on myself. I say that if my guild is falling behind, I need to pick up the slack. I need to be more geared because I have the expendable income that I'm more than willing to spend, and I also have the time, and I'm not burnt out of the game, so I'm willing to invest more into the game. So it's really give and take. You know, some people in your raid or some people in your guild are more than happy to play more, are more happy to pick up the slack. While there are other people that are really burnt out and they need assistance, they need help. You know, they just really don't want to play the game. And it's understandable. So it's just understanding where people's mentalities are, where people's mindsets are, and balancing things. So the eighth point was how to find a guild. A guild is a very tricky thing to do. A lot of people rush because they're new to the game. They want to find friends instantly, and they want to, just have a good time because they see people having a good time on YouTube. They see people maybe they see their friends doing raids and stuff, and they're like, wow, I want a piece of the action, right? So my first advice to people looking for a guild is take your time. If you just jump into the first guild that recruits you, you essentially are wasting your time, because when you jump into that guild, you don't know what you're jumping into. You don't know what you signed up for. They might be a super hardcore progression raid, or progression guild, where they expect you to invest 13 hours, 15 hours, a week into the game. Well, maybe you don't have that time. Maybe you're not that hardcore in progression. Maybe, there's a lot of variables. So I really do suggest you to take your time. Just browse through a bunch of guilds, see which one fits you personally, and then try applying for it. As for a way to look for guilds, I have in the description below, I have a link to the Blade and Soul Raid Recruitment Discord, and you can go in there. There's a tab that literally says Guild Recruitment, and you can browse through all of the guilds over there that are recruiting, and take your time and just even talk to the guild leader or the recruiter himself or herself, and just get a better understanding of the guild and see, does it fit what you're looking for? Or you can be even more direct, and when you're talking to the recruiter, be like, listen, I'm looking for this. Do you guys offer A, B, C or not? And that's a good way to find a good guild. And, never feel entitled. That's another thing a lot of new people, when they come into a new guild, that I'm very wary about. When you come into a new guild, the guild doesn't owe you anything. You owe the guild a favor because the guild recruited you. So don't expect people to carry you, people to, give you free items, stuff like that. Be willing to learn, be willing to be patient, be willing to pull your own weight. And that's really the best advice that I can give you. Be humble. Just be humble. And don't be too arrogant. And eventually you will find a guild that is good for you. So next up is how to overcome social anxiety. Social anxiety is a very difficult thing to overcome, mainly because it's in your head. A lot of the time it's in your head. You're overthinking things. Like 80% of the time, you're really just overthinking things. And that's what causes social anxiety. You're scared of the things, you're scared of the unknown. Because you don't know what that person thinks about you, you don't know if that person wants to play with you, and you're too scared to ask. And then you get in your own head and you're thinking, that guy hasn't played with me in 2 days. It might be because that guy hates me. And that's how social anxiety starts to get serious. My main advice for people who are suffering through social anxiety is just overcome it by asking questions that will clear up all doubt. So for example, let's say that person hasn't played with you in 2 days or hasn't played with you in a week, and you think that, that guy might be avoiding me or that guy might hate me. Just approach that guy and send him a message. Because I know sometimes talking through voice, it's a little bit scary. So just send them a short message. Just be like, hey, do you hate me? Or hey, can we play tomorrow? Or hey, can we play now? Or hey, when are you available? Let's play together again. And depending on how they reply, you more or less get a better understanding on where your place is. So let's say that there's maybe the guy tells you, oh, I'm busy, I can't play right now, but maybe we can play next week, or maybe we can play tomorrow. Then, at least they left the door open, right? So you know that, okay, that guy doesn't hate me. But if the guy just says, sorry, not now, and doesn't follow up with an opening, then you might need to approach him with a second question and be like, try to identify what's really bothering you. And maybe you can be super direct and be like, do you hate me? Just simple as that. Then you're either going to get a yes, a no, maybe, or not really. And depending on what you get, then you know how to deal with it. If it's a yes, then that's it. Done. They don't like you. If it's a no, then you can follow up and be like, okay, then have you been busy recently? Or like, why haven't you been wanting to play with me? Or maybe we can set up a time to play together, stuff like that. You open the door again. If it's a maybe, then it's like, then you need to identify why. A maybe is on the fence. So you need to identify why they're not playing with you. Maybe they don't like your attitude. Maybe they don't like certain aspects of your personality. And, by identifying it, then you can troubleshoot it. Maybe they don't like you screaming into the microphone all the time when you get excited. Then you can hold yourself back when we're playing together. I really want to play with that person, but he doesn't like my screaming. Then maybe I'll mute my mic when I'm about to scream, or when I'm excited, or whatever. Or maybe I'll calm down a bit, or, you just cater to the player that you want to play with. And then if it's a not really, then that's also on the fence, but it means that they don't really hate you. Then again, it's the same as the maybe. You need to identify why not really, what's wrong, what don't they like. And that's how you overcome social anxiety. It's just facing your fears head on and understanding why you feel so anxious, why you feel so nervous all the time. And the easiest way, the most direct way, is to just face it head on and just ask yourself, why am I so nervous around that person? Why am I scared of this guy? Why am I scared of that guy? Once you've identified it, then troubleshoot it. That's all the subjects that we covered with Eckogen in the podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Espresso with Kero. If you did, I would appreciate a subscribe, as it does help out my channel a lot. You will find out in the next episode of Tea with Kero. I do have a goal for the end of December. I am hoping to hit 10,000 subscribers. So I would really, really appreciate some help from you guys. And thanks for watching the video. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
What can I say except you're welcome? For the heals, the boosts, the